The sun looked small and distant from Titan, Saturn's largest moon. Through the thick reinforced windows of the colony dome, it appeared as just another bright star in the black sky. Commander Ellie Mason stood at the viewport, watching the orange haze of Titan's atmosphere swirl above the methane lakes that surrounded the base. This was home now, Earth's most distant outpost and its smallest. Titan base housed only 157 colonists. Originally planned as a stepping stone to deeper space exploration, budget cuts and shifting political priorities had left it underfunded and largely forgotten. Most of Earth's resources went to the larger colonies on Mars and Europa. Titan was an afterthought, valuable only for its scientific data and modest resource extraction operation. Ellie checked her watch and sighed. 3 years she had been here, transferred after the incident on Mars where she had saved 30 lives but disobeyed direct orders to do so. Her superiors called it a promotion, but everyone knew it was really exile. "Commander, the morning reports are ready," said a voice behind her. Ellie turned to find Lieutenant Rick Taylor, her second-in-command, holding a data tablet. Taylor was a quiet man with sharp eyes that missed nothing. Rumors said he had once been Special Forces, though he never spoke of his past. "Anything interesting?" Ellie asked, taking the tablet. "Greenhouse production is up 8%. Joe fixed the water recycling system again, and..." He hesitated. "Long-range sensors picked up something odd about 2 hours ago." Ellie looked up from the tablet. "Odd how?" "Movement. Outside our usual shipping lanes. Frank is monitoring it." They walked together through the main corridor of the base. The walls were plain metal, though colonists had tried to make it feel more like home with painted murals and small plants in hydroponic containers. Children's artwork decorated the doors of family quarters. Despite the isolation and the harsh environment outside, people had made a life here. In the command center, a circular room with workstations arranged around a central holographic display, Communications Officer Frank Miller was hunched over his console. He was young, fresh from Earth's Space Academy, but his skills were exceptional. "Talk to me, Frank," Ellie said. "3 objects, Commander. Moving fast. First thought it was a supply ship, but trajectory is wrong, and they're not responding to hails." Frank's fingers moved across his console, bringing up the sensor data on the main display. The objects were approaching Titan from an unusual angle, not from the direction of Earth or any of the established colonies. Ellie felt a chill run down her spine. Could it be a private mining operation? Or explorers who got off course? Frank shook his head. "Configuration doesn't match anything in our database." The command center went quiet as the implications sank in. Humanity had expanded throughout the solar system, but had never encountered another intelligent species. "How long until they reach us?" Ellie asked. "At current speed, 43 minutes, Frank replied. Ellie straightened her uniform jacket. "Send a message to Earth, Priority Alpha, then alert all section leaders. I want everyone at their stations." Rick nodded and moved to the security console. "Should we arm the defense systems?" Ellie hesitated. Titan base had minimal defenses, enough to deter pirates or deal with emergencies, but nothing designed for real combat. If these were truly alien vessels with hostile intent, they were woefully unprepared. "Yes," she decided, "but keep weapon systems on standby. Let's not appear hostile unless we need to be." As Rick carried out her orders, Ellie opened a base-wide channel. "Attention all personnel. This is Commander Mason. We have detected unknown vessels approaching Titan. This is not a drill. All non-essential personnel report to secure areas. Section leaders implement emergency protocols. Remain calm and await further instructions." Throughout the base, the mood shifted from routine to controlled urgency. In the medical bay, Dr. Carol White and her team prepared for potential casualties. In engineering, Joe Peterson ran diagnostics on critical systems. In the school section, teachers gathered the colony's 27 children and moved them toward the emergency bunkers beneath the main structure. Security Officer Linda Warren assembled her volunteer defense team, 12 colonists with varying degrees of combat training who served as the base's security force when needed. Among them was Samantha Lee, a botanist whose steady hands and keen eye had made her an excellent marksman. "I never thought we'd actually need to do this," Samantha said quietly, as Linda distributed weapons. "Better prepared and not needed then." "The other way around," Linda replied, her face grim. Back in the command center, Frank's console beeped urgently. "Commander, the vessels have increased speed. New arrival time is 12 minutes, and they're scanning us. Our systems are being probed." "Countermeasures," Ellie ordered. "Protect our critical systems." Frank worked frantically at his console. "They're getting through our firewalls like they're not even there." "What are they accessing?" "Everything. Base schematics, personnel files, defense capabilities." Frank looked up, his face pale. "They know exactly how weak we are." Ellie felt a cold knot in her stomach. Earth's weakest colony, about to face an unknown threat with help months away. "Lieutenant Taylor," she said, her voice steady despite her fear. "Initiate Protocol Omega." Rick looked at her in surprise. Protocol Omega was classified, a defense system installed on all Earth colonies but never activated. Few knew of its existence, and even fewer knew what it contained. "Understood." "Commander," he said, moving to a plain section of wall where he placed his palm against a hidden scanner. A panel slid open, revealing a keypad where he entered a long code from memory. Throughout the base, previously hidden compartments opened in walls, floors, and ceilings. Inside were weapons far more advanced than the standard issue equipment, prototype, defense systems that had been disguised as ordinary machinery. The aliens might have accessed their database, but these systems weren't in any file they could hack. "All section leaders," Ellie announced over the comm, "you now have access to Omega resources. Deploy as trained." The aliens, whoever they were, believed they had chosen an easy target. What they couldn't know was that Earth's military had long viewed its most distant outposts as potential first contact points and had prepared accordingly. 5 minutes to contact," Frank announced. "They've launched smaller craft. Looks like they're planning to land." On the main display, they watched as the alien vessels took up position above the base. They were sleek, with no visible propulsion system, and dark in color, except for pulsing blue lights along their hulls. "They're targeting our communication array," Frank reported as the first energy blast hit the base. The entire structure shuddered and warning lights flashed across every console. "Shields holding at 70%, Rick reported. "But they won't last long against that kind of firepower." Ellie made her decision. "Activate all defense systems. Target their weapons first." Hidden defense turrets emerged from the base's exterior, returning fire at the alien ships. The command center erupted in activity as the battle began in earnest. "Secondary communications online," Frank called out. "I've rerouted through the backup systems." "Good," Ellie replied. "Get a message to Earth. They need to know what's happening here." The base shook again as another blast hit, more powerful than the first. A section of ceiling collapsed in the far corner of the command center, sending sparks flying from damaged equipment. "Shields at 40%, Rick reported. "They're targeting our power core now. Evacuate all non-combat personnel to the bunkers," Ellie ordered. "Linda, get your team to the main hangar. They'll try to breach there first." As her orders were carried out, Ellie studied the alien ships on the display. They were methodical in their attack, taking out defensive capabilities first, then communication, then power. This wasn't random violence, it was a planned invasion. "Commander," Frank called, his voice tight with anxiety. "They've breached the outer doors. They're inside the base." Ellie stood tall, drawing her own weapon from its holster. "It seems we have visitors," she said calmly. "Let's show them proper Titan hospitality." The first 7 minutes of the alien attack on humanity had begun. No one knew it yet, but those 7 minutes would change the course of human history forever. The first minute of the attack began with chaos. Alien forces breached the main hangar of Titan Base, their armor gleaming under the emergency lights. They moved with purpose, each step precise and calculated. The aliens stood nearly 7 feet, tall with bodies protected by exoskeletons that seemed to shift colors in the light. Where their faces should have been, there were only smooth helmets with no visible eye slits. Security officer Linda Warren and her team were waiting. They had set up a defensive position using cargo containers and equipment, creating a bottleneck at the hangar entrance. Among them was botanist Samantha Lee, who knelt behind a metal crate, her hand steady on her weapon despite never having fired at anything but practice targets before. "Hold until my mark," Linda whispered into her comm unit. "Remember your training." The aliens advanced, weapons raised. They seemed confident, moving in formation as if they expected little resistance. Linda waited until the first group was fully inside the hangar before giving the signal. Now. The colonists opened fire from 3 directions. The aliens' advance halted as several of their front line fell. For a moment they seemed confused by the resistance, their formation breaking. Then they scattered, taking cover behind shuttles and equipment. In the command center, Commander Ellie Mason watched the hangar feed while Lieutenant Rick Taylor coordinated the base's defenses. "The hangar team is holding for now," Rick reported, "but we have breaches in sections 3 and 7. "Seal off those sections," Ellie ordered. "Joe, how's the power core?" Engineer Joe Peterson's voice came through the comm, strained but steady. "They're trying to overload it. I'm rerouting power to keep it stable, but I can't hold them off and maintain systems at the same time." "Help is on the way," Ellie promised. She turned to Rick. "Get a team to engineering and activate the drones." The second minute brought new challenges. Communication Officer Frank Miller worked frantically at his console as alien signals jammed their frequencies. "They're blocking our communications with the defense teams," he reported. "Can you clear the interference?" Ellie asked. Frank shook his head. "Not completely, but I might be able to use the mining equipment's frequencies. They operate on a different band." "Do it," Ellie ordered. Throughout the base, hidden defensive measures activated as Protocol Omega continued its deployment. Maintenance drones, normally used for external repairs in Titan's harsh atmosphere, now moved with new purpose. Joe Peterson had reprogrammed them months ago, a personal project he'd never expected to use. The drones flew through the corridors, equipped with small but powerful weapons targeting the alien invaders. In the third minute, Linda's team in the hangar faced increasing pressure. The aliens had recovered from their initial surprise and were now using advanced tactics, their weapons firing bursts of blue energy that melted through cover. "We can't hold much longer," Linda reported through the patchy comlink. In engineering, Joe Peterson heard her transmission as he worked to stabilize the power core. An idea struck him, desperate but possible. "Commander," he called, "I can redirect coolant from the southern sections into the hangar. It won't hurt our people if they're in sealed suits, but it might slow the aliens down." "Our people don't have time to suit up," Ellie replied. "They won't need to," Joe explained quickly. "I can keep it to ankle level, enough to affect them but not our team." "Do it," Ellie decided. As the fourth minute began, super-cooled methane flooded the hangar floor. The temperature dropped rapidly. The colonists felt the cold through their boots, but the aliens reacted as if in pain. Their movements became sluggish, their coordinated attack faltering. "It's working," Linda reported. "They're vulnerable to the cold." Her team pressed their advantage, pushing forward from their defensive positions. Samantha Lee moved with surprising confidence, each shot finding its target. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Rick Taylor led a team to engineering to support Joe. They encountered aliens in the corridor, 6 of them moving toward the power core. Rick signaled his team to take cover, then accessed a control panel on the wall. "Titan's atmosphere is toxic to us," he muttered. "Let's see if it's any better for them." He selectively depressurized the section. Warning klaxons blared as emergency. Doors slammed shut, trapping the aliens in the corridor. Air hissed out through suddenly opened vents replaced by Titan's natural atmosphere, nitrogen-rich with methane and other hydrocarbons. The aliens' armor seemed to provide them some protection, but they struggled as the pressure changed and toxic gases entered through small gaps in their suits. "We need to get to Joe," Rick told his team. "Helmets on." They donned their emergency breathing gear and pressed forward through the contaminated section, stepping over the weakened aliens. The 5th minute saw a turning point in the battle. Frank Miller finally managed to break through the aliens' jamming signal. "I've got a clear channel to Earth," he announced. "Sending our situation now." "Add everything we've learned about their weaknesses," Ellie instructed. Cold, pressure changes. Titan's atmosphere. They're not adapted to these conditions. As the message streamed toward Earth, a journey that would take hours, the aliens launched a new assault on the command center itself. Ellie heard them outside the reinforced doors, their weapons working to cut through. Frank, lock down those systems. If they get our main database, they'll have access to every colony's defenses, she ordered, drawing her weapon. Already done, Frank replied, his fingers flying over his console. I've partitioned the critical data and set up a false server to keep them busy. The 6th minute brought the battle to its height. The command center doors gave way and aliens poured in. Ellie and her team took cover behind overturned workstations, the air filled with weapons fire, human projectiles and alien energy bursts crossing in deadly patterns. They're still targeting the communications array, Frank called out, ducking as a bolt of energy sizzled over his head. Ellie saw an alien targeting Frank's position. She broke from cover, fired 3 precise shots, and watched the alien fall. Another turned toward her, its weapon charging. Ellie dove behind a console as the energy burst hit where she had stood seconds before. Throughout the base, similar battles raged. In the residential sectors, colonists fought to protect their homes and families. Dr. Carol White defended the medical bay where wounded colonists were being treated, armed with only a surgical laser repurposed as a weapon. In engineering, Joe Peterson had reached a decision. With Rick and his team now helping to defend the power core, Joe moved to the resource extraction controls, the massive drills designed to penetrate Titan's frozen surface. Lieutenant, I need 2 minutes without interruption, he told Rick. You've got it, Rick replied, not asking questions. He positioned his team to create a defensive perimeter around Joe's workstation. Joe's hands moved across the controls, reprogramming the drill trajectories. These weren't small instruments. They were industrial-sized bores capable of cutting through the hardest ice, and they could be redirected upward, toward the alien ships hovering above the base. As the 7th minute began, Joe completed his work. Everyone brace, he called over the now functioning comm system. There's going to be some structural damage. Throughout the base, the colonists took cover as the massive drills activated. Instead of pushing downward into Titan's crust, they angled upward, breaking through the base's own roof. Metal screamed against metal as the drills tore through layers of protective shielding. Outside, the drills continued their path upward, straight toward the alien ships. The first drill punctured the hull of the nearest vessel, tearing through its underside. The second drill hit another ship seconds later. Both alien crafts lost stability, their lights flickering as critical systems failed. Inside the command center, everyone watched on the few functioning screens as the alien ships began to fall. One exploded in a flash of blue energy. The other spiraled down to crash into one of Titan's methane lakes, disappearing beneath the surface with a plume of gas and liquid. The third ship, seeing the fate of its companions, began a hasty retreat from Titan's orbit, its engines straining and damaged. Throughout the base, the remaining aliens seemed to lose coordination. Their attacks became disorganized, allowing the colonists to push them back toward their entry points. They must have had a central command on one of those ships, Rick observed as he returned to the damaged command center. Ellie nodded, surveying the destruction around her. Workstations sparked, bodies lay on the floor, both human and alien, and the air was thick with smoke. But they had held. 7 minutes, Frank said in disbelief, looking at his console's timer. They hit us, and 7 minutes later they were gone. Ellie holstered her weapon. This is just the beginning, she said quietly. Send teams to secure any alien technology left behind. And Frank, keep sending that message to Earth. They need to know what happened here. As the immediate danger passed, the colonists of Titan Base began to count their losses and tend to their wounded. 5 were dead, 17 injured. But Earth's weakest colony had just faced humanity's first alien attack, and survived. The day after the attack, Titan Base was quiet except for the sounds of repair work. The colonists moved through damaged corridors with purpose, clearing debris and fixing systems. The normal rhythm of the base had been replaced by something new, a determined focus born from shared survival. Commander Ellie Mason stood in what remained of the medical bay, watching Dr. Carol White tend to the injured. Beds lined the walls, each holding a wounded colonist. Some had burns from alien weapons, others had injuries from falling debris. All were alive, thanks to Carol's quick work during and after the battle. "How are they doing?" Ellie asked softly. Carol looked up from changing a bandage on a young technician's arm. Dark circles under her eyes showed she hadn't slept since the attack. "Stable for now, but I'm low on painkillers and antibiotics. If infection sets in..." She didn't finish the sentence. "I understand," Ellie said. "We've sent another message to Earth. Help is coming, but it will take time." Carol nodded and returned to her patient. Ellie left the medical bay and made her way through the base. In some sections, the damage was so severe that temporary airlocks had been set up to maintain pressure. The greenhouse area had been hit hard, with many of the plants destroyed by explosive decompression when the aliens breached that section. In the remains of the greenhouse, botanist Samantha Lee was salvaging what plants she could. Her hands, so steady with a weapon during the battle, now gently sorted through broken planters looking for any survivors. "Any luck?" Ellie asked. Samantha looked up, her face tired but determined. "Some of the root vegetables made it. A few fruit, seedlings too. It's not much, but it's a start. We need to rebuild quickly or we'll be on emergency rations within a month. I'll send you whatever help you need," Ellie promised. "This has to be a priority." She continued her rounds, checking on each section of the base. The damage was extensive but not catastrophic. Thanks to Joe Peterson's quick thinking, the power core remained stable. The communication systems were partially restored, though the main array would need complete replacement. The defensive systems, both the standard ones and those revealed by Protocol Omega, were being repaired and enhanced based on what they had learned about alien weapons. Ellie found Lieutenant Rick Taylor in a secure room they had set up to study the alien technology left behind. 3 alien bodies lay on tables, their armor removed and set aside. Without their imposing exoskeletons, the aliens looked almost fragile, tall, thin beings with gray-blue skin and 4-fingered hands. "What have you learned?" Ellie asked. Rick looked up from an alien weapon he was examining. "Their technology is advanced, but not beyond our understanding. Their weapons use a form of plasma, energy, extremely powerful but with high power consumption. Their armor seems to be designed for combat in high-gravity environments, which might explain why they moved more easily than expected in Titan's low gravity." He pointed to one of the bodies. "Kevin has been studying their biology. They seem adapted to a warmer, higher-pressure world than Earth, which explains their vulnerability to Titan's conditions." Xenobiologist Kevin Russell nodded from where he worked at a microscope. "Their cellular structure is fascinating, designed to withstand high pressure but susceptible to rapid changes. The cold affects them because their equivalent of blood becomes sluggish at low temperatures. They were built for a specific environment, and it wasn't anything like Titan." "Could they adapt?" Ellie asked. Kevin shrugged. "Given time, maybe. But they weren't prepared for what they found here." "None of us were," Ellie replied quietly. She left them to their work and continued to the command center, where Frank Miller was coordinating communication with the various teams throughout the base. The room had been hastily repaired, with temporary panels covering the worst damage and portable equipment replacing destroyed consoles. "Any response from Earth yet?" Ellie asked. Frank shook his head. "The signal has reached them. We got confirmation of that, but no detailed response yet. The Jupiter relay station is still acknowledging our updates, though." "Keep trying," Ellie said. "And what about the alien ship, the one that got away?" "Long-range sensors show it leaving the Saturn system. It's damaged, moving slower than when they arrived. At current speed, it will take them at least 2 weeks to reach the outer boundary." Ellie nodded, processing this information. "They'll be back," she said, "and not alone next time." "What makes you so sure?" Frank asked. "Because that's what I would do," Ellie replied. Over the next few days, recovery efforts continued. Security Officer Linda Warren established regular patrols and training sessions for all colonists. Even the scientists and support staff now spent 2 hours each day learning combat techniques and familiarizing themselves with the weapons revealed by Protocol Omega. "Next time," Linda told them during a training session in the partially repaired hangar, We won't have the element of surprise. We need every person capable of defending the base. Engineer Joe Peterson worked tirelessly to repair critical systems. He recruited a team to help restore the communication array, knowing that their connection to Earth was vital for survival. Each night he fell asleep at his workstation, too exhausted to make it back to his quarters. On the fourth day after the attack, xenobiologist Kevin Russell made a discovery that changed everything. He called an emergency meeting of the senior staff in the secure room. "I found this while examining their equipment," he said, placing a small device on the table. It projected a holographic display showing Earth's solar system. Each human colony was marked with alien symbols. Titan Base had a symbol that glowed brighter than the others. "I've translated some of their language from their computer systems," Kevin explained. "This symbol means Phase 1. The others appear to be targets for future attacks." A heavy silence fell over the room as the implications became clear. "They knew exactly where to hit us," Commander Mason said grimly. "This wasn't a random encounter." "That means they've been watching us," Rick added. "Studying our colonies, our defenses. And they chose us because we appeared to be the weakest," Ellie concluded. "Their mistake," Linda said with a grim smile. Ellie studied the holographic map. "We need to warn the other colonies. Frank, how soon can we get this information to Earth?" "I've almost restored the main communication array," Joe said before Frank could answer. "Give me 12 more hours and we can send a detailed data packet." "Do it," Ellie ordered. As the days passed, life on Titan Base settled into a new normal. Children, who had been kept in the emergency bunkers during the attack, were gradually reintegrated into daily activities. The base school reopened, though lessons now included basic survival skills alongside standard subjects. The youngest children were asked to help Samantha in the rebuilt greenhouse, turning the experience into a learning opportunity rather than focusing on the trauma. A week after the attack, Frank Miller received the message they had been waiting for. Earth had responded to their distress call. He rushed to find Commander Mason in her makeshift office. "They've sent a response," he said breathlessly. "2 military vessels have been dispatched. Estimated arrival time is 63 days. Ellie leaned back in her chair. 2 months and we need to be ready to hold out that long on our own. "There's more," Frank said. "They're sending supplies, weapons, and additional personnel. Titan Base is being reclassified as a strategic defense point. They want us to continue studying the alien technology and provide regular updates on our findings. So we've gone from Earth's forgotten outpost to its front line," Ellie said with a hint of irony. "We've earned it," Frank replied. That evening, Ellie called all colonists together in the main hall, the largest space that remained intact after the attack. People sat on crates and makeshift benches, their faces showing the strain of the past week but also a new strength. "Earth has responded to our message," she told them. "Help is coming, but we have to hold this position for 2 more months. I believe we can do that. More than that, I believe we can make Titan Base stronger than it was before." She looked around at the faces watching her. Scientists, engineers, teachers, children. People who had come to Titan to study and explore, not to fight a war. Yet, they had faced an alien attack and survived. "The aliens chose us because they thought we were weak," Ellie continued. "They were wrong. Now Earth has chosen us to be its first line of defense. We will not let them down. We will rebuild, we will prepare. And if the aliens return before help arrives," she paused, her gaze steady, "we'll only need 6 minutes to send them away next time." A cheer rose from the gathered colonists, echoing through the damaged halls of Titan Base. Earth's weakest colony was weak no more. 2 weeks after the attack, life on Titan Base had found a rhythm. The colonists divided their time between repairs, training, and their original scientific work. The greenhouse was producing food again, though in smaller quantities. Power systems were stable. The communication array had been fully restored, allowing regular updates to Earth about their discoveries. Commander Ellie Mason sat in her office reviewing the latest reports. The door chimed, and Communications Officer Frank Miller entered, his face showing an expression Ellie hadn't seen since before the attack. Excitement. "Commander, we're picking up a signal," he said. "It's coming from the direction the surviving alien ship fled to." Ellie set down her tablet. Are they coming back? No. Frank shook his head. The signal isn't moving toward us. It's stationary about 3 light hours away, and it's using a modified version of our communication protocols. What do you mean? They've studied our transmission methods and adapted them. They're trying to talk to us specifically. Ellie leaned back in her chair, considering the implications. Could it be a trap? Some kind of virus or attack on our systems? Possible, Frank admitted. I've isolated it on a separate system to be safe, but it seems like a genuine attempt at communication. Get Lieutenant Taylor and Kevin Russell, Ellie decided. We need to analyze this carefully. Within an hour, the senior staff gathered in the command center. Kevin had been working to translate the alien language since they'd recovered their technology, and he studied the signal with intense concentration. The structure is definitely based on our own protocols, he confirmed. They've created a hybrid system combining their language with ours. Very clever. Can you understand what they're saying? Ellie asked. Kevin nodded slowly. Parts of it. They identify themselves as the Vorax. The message repeats several times with variations. I think they're trying different approaches to make sure we understand. What do they want? Rick asked, his hand resting near his weapon as if the aliens might somehow attack through the communication system. Kevin worked at the console for several minutes before looking up. They want to establish communication. They say, he paused, checking his translation again. They say they were sent to test our defenses and have reported their failure. Test our defenses? Linda Warren repeated from where she stood by the door. That sounds like they're advanced scouts for a larger force. The room fell silent as everyone considered this possibility. Should we respond? Frank asked finally. Ellie paced the room, weighing their options. Responding might provide valuable information, but it could also reveal weaknesses the aliens could exploit in a future attack. We need to know what we're dealing with, she decided. Frank set up a response. Keep it simple. Acknowledge their message, but don't provide any information about our status or capabilities. Frank nodded and began working at his console while Kevin helped with the translation. The response they crafted was brief. Message received. Identify purpose of communication. Hours passed before they received a reply. The senior staff had remained in the command center, each person finding ways to keep busy while they waited. The tension was broken by a series of beeps from Frank's console. They've responded, he announced, transferring the data to Kevin's system. Kevin worked quickly to translate. It's longer this time, more complex. They're saying... He paused, his eyes widening. Commander, you need to hear this. The translation revealed something none of them had expected. The Vorax claimed they were not independent actors, but soldiers created to serve another species they called the Masters. These Masters had conquered the Vorax homeworld generations, ego and genetically modified them for war. The Vorax were sent throughout space to identify potential threats and test defenses. They're slaves, Ellie said softly, forced to fight wars for another species. It could be a trick, Rick warned, a way to gain our sympathy. Maybe, Ellie admitted. But why make up such a story? If they wanted to deceive us, pretending to be peaceful explorers would be more effective. Kevin continued translating as more of the message came through. There's more. They say our resistance showed. I think the closest meaning is possibility of freedom. They're offering us information. What kind of information? Ellie asked. The answer came in the next transmission. The Vorax sent tactical data about their master's fleet positions, weapon, capabilities, and weaknesses. The data was extensive and detailed, far more than would be shared as a deception. If this is genuine, Rick said, studying the tactical information, it's incredibly valuable. The fleet they're describing is massive, dozens of ships, each more powerful than the ones that attacked us. And they all have the same vulnerabilities we discovered, Linda added, looking over his shoulder. Sensitivity to rapid pressure changes, cold environments. Ellie faced the most difficult decision of her command. The Vorax could be laying a trap, sending false information to lead Earth's defenses astray. But if they were genuine, this could save countless human lives. Kevin, prepare another message, she decided. Tell them we're interested in continuing, this exchange of information. Ask them about their master's plans and timeline. As Kevin worked on the translation, botanist Samantha Lee entered the command center. She rarely left the greenhouse these days, working constantly to rebuild their food supply. "I heard about the alien communication," she said, approaching Ellie. "I've been studying their biology from the tissue samples Kevin shared. Their genetic code shows signs of extensive modification. They were designed for war." "You believe their story?" Ellie asked. Samantha nodded. "The modifications are extreme beyond what would naturally evolve. Some seem designed to ensure obedience. Pain centers that can be remotely activated, neural pathways that prevent certain types of independent thought. They're living weapons, Commander." This new information added weight to the Vorax's claims. Over the next several days, communication continued. The Vorax provided more data, star charts showing their master's territory, information about other species they had conquered, and details about the masters themselves. A picture emerged of a species that had built an empire through conquest, using the Vorax as their frontline soldiers. Earth had not been specifically targeted. The masters sent Vorax scouts in all directions, looking for new worlds to bring under their control. When the scouts did not return, larger forces were dispatched. "According to this," Rick said during a briefing 1 week after communications began, "we can expect a larger force to arrive in approximately 6 months. 3 ships, much more heavily armed than the ones we faced. And behind them, if those ships fail, will come an even larger force," Ellie added. "What about the Vorax?" Frank asked. "They seem to be helping us. Could they be allies?" "Maybe," Ellie said. "But they've been genetically programmed for loyalty. Even if some want to help us, others might not be able to overcome their conditioning." The question of whether to trust the Vorax divided the colonists. Some, like Rick Taylor, remained deeply suspicious. Others, like Samantha and Kevin, believed their information was genuine. Ellie listened to all perspectives before making her decision. "We continue the dialogue," she announced finally. "But we verify everything they tell us, and we prepare as if they might be deceiving us. We share this information with Earth and let them decide how to respond on a larger scale." Earth's response came quickly. The United Earth government took the threat seriously, accelerating the dispatch of ships to Titan and beginning preparations throughout the solar system. Additional defense systems were being installed on all colonies, based on what Titan had learned about Vorax weaknesses. 2 months after the attack, as promised, Earth ships arrived at Titan. They brought supplies, weapons, and additional personnel, including military specialists and xenobiologists eager to study the alien technology and biology. The day the ships docked, Lieutenant Rick Taylor stood with Commander Mason in the rebuilt observation room, watching through the reinforced windows as Earth personnel disembarked. "You know," he said quietly, "when I requested this assignment, I thought I was choosing the quietest post in the solar system." Ellie smiled. "Instead, you helped start what might become humanity's first interstellar alliance, or its first interstellar war." "Do you think the Vorax can be trusted?" Rick asked. "I think some of them want freedom as much as they want victory," Ellie replied. "And that gives us something to work with." As Earth forces integrated with the Titan colonists, training intensified. The base expanded, new defenses were installed, and research into alien technology accelerated. The colony that had once been considered Earth's weakest outpost was now its strongest forward base. And somewhere in the darkness of space, a damaged Vorax ship continued to transmit information, helping the humans prepare for what was coming. The Master's Empire had never failed to conquer a world once targeted, but they had never encountered humans before, especially not the humans of Titan Base, who had turned 7 minutes of desperate defense into humanity's first step onto a much larger galactic stage.